One of the great questions I often get asked is, how do you think about ROI and return on this investment of coming here to the US for your master's degree? The best way to think about ROI, there is a financial and mathematical approach to this, and there's also an intrinsic approach to this in terms of the opportunities that you will get exposed to, the research that you get to do, the cutting edge technology that you will have access to, and the dividends that this will pay throughout your entire career from this point forth. So it's hard to come up with some degree of a dollar value for all of that. But let's put that aside, and although this will be a very transformative experience for every individual, let's concentrate on the dollars that you will expend and the dollars that you will retrieve as part of your master's program. Generally, a master's in the US, it will be around the $25,000 to $30,000, perhaps a year is what you will expect to pay. Now, you can expect some degree of assistantship, and you can expect some degree of maybe a scholarship of some sorts, perhaps even an on-campus job, an internship. All of that will probably reduce your cost of living, which is not really accounted in this math that we're going to do today. So let's basically say it's not really just the $25,000. You also have to think about the cost of living, which would mean an additional $12,000, which will be offset perhaps by that on-campus job, the internships that you will do. So for this purposes, the cost of tuition is what we'll focus on. So it's at $25,000, and I'm going to presume that you're going to be here for a 2-year period. There are the 1-year masters as well, but if you've seen my earlier advice, I've advocated for perhaps doing the 2-year program over the 1 year for all the additional benefits that you have and to maximize your chances of finding gainful employment during your OPT period. So from that perspective, your expenditures is now $50,000. In your OPT, assuming that you have done this as a STEM designated degree, you will have 3 years to be able to work in the US. When you're working in the US with an advanced degree, ideally in the field of technology, you can expect to make north of that $70,000, $75,000, perhaps even $80,000 to $85,000. Depending on where you live, and if you have prior experience, you can get to that $90,000 range. But let's stick to the average for this purpose. So in year 1, you can expect to make $75,000. Now you take that, you account for 3 years of that. We're going to be a bit more conservative. So we're going to presume there's not going to be a compensation raise in year 2 and year 3, which is unlikely. But let's presume it stayed flat at $75K. And to $75K times 3, that's $225K. That's gross. So you can't really compare your $50K investment to $225K gross. The way you sort of think about this is you have expenditures as well. You'll have to pay taxes. You also will have cost of living. Depending on where in the US you are, the cost of living may be high or it may be quite manageable. Let's actually presume that your taxes and your cost of living and any additional expenditures account to 60% of your annual gross income. So 60% of that $75K now becomes $45,000. So $45,000 is gone. Now what you have remaining is $30,000 per year that you can account for towards paying off any loans or towards that original investment. Over 3 years, that's $90,000. So your $50,000 has now netted you within 3 years a 2x return on your investment, which is a great place for you to be in. And from there on forth, if you're choosing to stay in the US on an H-1B, then you can account for those as well in terms of your ROI calculation. Or if you're thinking of transplanting yourself to another part of the world, because you have all of those as great options. You've just procured a US education for 2 years. You've worked in the US for 3 years for a total of exposure of 5 years here in the US. You can become incredibly valuable in other parts of the world. So when you think about just the mathematical side of it, truly makes sense. When you think about the other intrinsic side of it, being exposed to the research and cutting edge technology and entrepreneurial options, and all of that also adds on to it. So from an ROI calculations perspective, it's really positive, and that's how you sort of think about this.